Hi, good evening, everyone. Sorry, I got my time clock is a little messed up. My name is Jenelle Riley. I'm the Associate Features Editor at Variety. I'm so thrilled to welcome you to this Q&A with Before Midnight. And at this time, it is my pleasure to welcome the actress who has not only played Celine in this trilogy, but is also the Oscar-nominated co-writer for Before Sunrise and co-wrote this screenplay, Before Sunset, sorry, and co-wrote this screenplay with co-star Ethan Hawke and director Richard Linklater. Please welcome Julie Delpy.
Thank you. I don't want to sit anymore. I'm like, thank you.
You're right. Your Oscar nomination was Before
So much
Sunsets.
nicer than writers. No, I'm joking. That's it.
Well, they get out in the sun, so they're
yeah. They have a life. No,
Congratulations on a beautiful movie. I can't think of any movie really where the third has held up as well as this one. Certainly not Godfather 3.
Not Yeah, maybe bad example. Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, it's been a real fun adventure to do those films and to explore deeper and further into those characters. I mean, it's not given to too many people to be able to do that. I mean, as actors, as writers, and as individuals, even. I mean, it's a real interesting journey.
Well, it's been 9 years since we last saw Jesse and
Yes.
Celine. How did you know the time was right to revisit them?
Well, we had a good idea for a screenplay. I mean, we thought we had some substance to express, and that sounded a little pretentious. Some substance, but that's not what I mean. It's not in a pretentious way. It means like we had something to say, basically. That's what I meant. And we realized that summer I was releasing a film, 2 Days in New York. His play got canceled. Rick's film got canceled. So suddenly we had a moment, because it's always been a tricky time sometimes to get together and work. And then we just went for it. That's when we decided to do it. We already had an idea and started working on the screenplay before, and we thought we were going to shoot it basically this summer. But then we realized, here it is, we can do it, so let's do it. So we got together, we went to Greece and started finishing the screenplay we had started and stuff.
And why set it in Greece? Was it just an excuse to get a nice vacation with friends, or?
Listen, it turned out to be, we didn't really enjoy as much as our families enjoyed the summer, because we were basically in a room from 9 till midnight every day, and we took a break, the swim break at sunset. That's how we started thinking about that. Still there, still there, still there. I mean, actually, I used to do that with my son in the water. Still there, it's still there. And then he panicked when the sun went away, usually, which is not the case in this situation. He's only 5. Ethan is older. He doesn't panic when he sees the sun disappear. But basically, so we had that break. That's it. But we were working all the time. But Richard went to Greece. We had decided we were going to do the film during holiday time, so they have this time together again. Because if it was too much domestic, then they would have not seen each other, basically. We thought about that originally, but then we were like, that's not very exciting to watch a movie about two people that never see each other, because they are dealing with this and that. So we decided, okay, holiday, they have an excuse to be together again, walking and talking. There's other scenes with other people and stuff, so holiday. So we thought, Spain, Italy, or Greece. And Rick went to Greece first and just fell in love with Greece and that house where we shoot the dinner scene. And he said, this is, let's do it in Greece. I was a little panicked. Because I was hoping to spend 3 months in Italy because I like the food, but how little did I know that I would like Greek food even more than Italian food.
And the writing process continued when you were in Greece.
It's all about food. I'm just talking about my,
I know people have taken jobs because of the craft services. So, sure, yeah. And you would rehearse scenes as you were sort of writing them?
So we wrote for 10 weeks. I mean, we had started writing the screenplay. We got together in Greece. Richard understood pretty quickly that I was so busy developing different projects. Ethan was so busy with his family, and me also with my family, that if he didn't lock us in a room somewhere, we were not going to do this. So he locked us in a room in Greece, and we finished the screenplay, and then we went into 2 weeks rehearsal, and then we shot the film in 15 days.
Wow.
It was a very tough thing to do. And people underestimate how hard I think it is to, we had no, the bullseye was this, like we had to do it right. Mm-hmm. Otherwise we didn't have a movie. Also, there's no cutting possible because everything is written so tightly and everything, there's almost no cut in a lot of scenes. So it was pretty difficult, I would say.
And
in some ways.
A big misconception is that there's improvising in this film. There's not a single line. Richard doesn't allow it, does he?
Not even a pause. I mean, it's so tightly scripted. When I was rehearsing, and sometimes I rehearse, I try to rehearse without Ethan, my lines, because then otherwise, so they find me a cute boy. I always kind of find I always end up with a cute boy running my lines. And Ethan never does. I mean, he gets not as good of a deal than me on that. But,
his boy isn't as cute.
But he was very sweet young boy. That nothing happened. I just want to make sure everyone understands. Could have. Anyway, no, I stop. I'm being silly. No. But basically, I rehearse my lines like nonstop. And the way we work on it is that we even, in a conversation, sometimes you overlap, sometimes you don't. You can't do a scene with two people filmed facing like in the car, and if there's no overlap, it's going to sound a little fake, and if there's too much overlap, you don't understand what they're saying, et cetera, et cetera. So we had to find the right moments to overlap and write them down with like an underline, okay, those two words, we overlap each other. All that stuff. So basically you find the rhythm that you usually find in editing, you have to find it in the rehearsing process. And it's so tedious and so horrible. I mean, it's not horrible because it's a wonderful feeling once you're done with it, once you're actually finished with the scene, you're like, we did it. It's like that kind of feeling, but it's actually so tedious and so precise. It seems almost, it's not very, it's not that exciting. It's actually really, really hard work. It's like practicing violin. I mean, it reminded me when I was playing violin, basically, where you have to do it so many times that you eventually, it sounds like it doesn't hurt. But in fact, it does hurt. That kind of pain kind of thing.
And speaking of that first scene in the car, I think it's a 13-minute take with no cutaways, no interruptions. How many times did you
There's one cutaway, but it's a fake one because it's just a cutaway to show the runes because you wanted to see it, but it's actually the same take.
Really?
So because in the end he couldn't edit it because the light was different in every take. Mm-hmm. Because it's really using a car. I mean, you have to think, it's not a play. We're shooting outside on the streets of Greece. I mean, with two kids in the back in that same shot. Yeah. So it's very tricky. We did as much as we could in the time frame we had, and we had 2 days to do that scene, but the first day turned out to be rehearsal time because for technical issues and all that, and then the second day was shooting, and in the end we got that one take once.
Only once?
Only once all the way through. There was always like a goat in the middle of the road. There was like, a light went off, because you have to think it's a whole production when you know how it is. It's like a whole, I'm talking to, people that know that there's like lights falling and lights are falling or turning off in a 3-minute scene. So imagine 14 minutes. It just, the chances of getting it right, we were lucky. I think we were lucky pretty much,
Were there a couple times when you almost made it all the way through and then somebody flubbed a line?
Oh yes, of course. No, and you have also 2 kids of 7 years old in the back. The chances of them actually waking up on cue is, and doing their job, and they were amazing. They were amazing.
Another misconception about your writing process is that you write for Celine and Ethan writes for Jesse, but that's actually not true at all, is it?
No, it's not true at all. I mean, I would say, yes, I write a little more of my lines than he writes my lines. I mean, it's not like we reverse roles and stuff, but I write a lot of lines for him. I remember on the second film, a friend of mine came up. A friend of mine was a feminist, like me, I'm proud to say I'm a feminist, it's a good thing to be a feminist. No, I've decided because a lot of and I like men, so I'm a feminist that loves men. So it's a good thing to be a feminist. But she was a little bit offended because there's one scene where he kind of insult my characters in a funny kind of way, and she's like, how can you let this character say that to her, make fun of her? And I was like, but how can you let Ethan write that line? And I'm like, but I wrote that line for him to say to my character, because it's always been, and often in that fight scene, we wrote like for each other, like insults or lines, your daughter will become, I don't know, he says, will become icons of feminism and stuff like that. Like all that stuff I wrote for him as a way to criticize my own self. I mean, there's nothing more fun to criticize your own self through someone else, because you realize it's actually very fun, to do it and write for others. I mean, I love writing for men. At the table, I wrote for the old man, for the young boy, for the older woman, like for every character in that scene, And
it sounds therapeutic.
Yeah, I mean, that's the job, I think, of writers and actors, is to find truth in other characters than yourself, And a lot of people think, for example, Celine is, in a way, kind of me, but not me or something. But, like, I have nothing to do with Celine's problems. She's married to a man who has a kid with another woman. She's dealing with the ex-wife. I don't even know what it's like. I've never been in this situation. So it's like finding the truth within yourself, but in someone else, in someone who's different from you, who has different problems from you. And you do that as a writer, I think, on many, many levels, because you have to identify with all the characters you're writing, or at least find the truth in all the characters within you to express all the characters you're writing. And you have to do it as an actor,
If we can go back to the first film, do you remember much about the process of booking the role of Celine? Was it an audition? Did you have a chemistry test with Ethan?
We had a chemistry test, yeah. I met Richard first exactly 20 years ago, around like October, November of 1993. And I met him, and then months later I had heard he was trying to cast another French actress, and I'm very competitive. No, I'm joking. No, it's not that. But I was like, why is he casting her? It doesn't really make sense. And then I was like, okay, so I guess he's casting her. And then I heard back from my agent suddenly saying, oh, by the way, he's doing an audition and he wants you and another actress only for the audition. So he must have changed his mind. And I mean, I was not involved in this changing of mind. And basically I went to the audition totally sure I was not going to get it, because I rarely get anything. And I actually saw the actress the day before, and she was about to fly to New York, and I said, oh, you're going to get it. And she didn't get it. But anyway.
You jinxed her.
Yeah, I tricked her. I jinxed her. Yeah, I jinxed her, tricked her. It was a trick. But no, and the truth is that I auditioned with another guy than Ethan in the morning, and it was no chemistry at all between us, And then I auditioned with Ethan, and it was great. And then we had a long conversation with Richard, and we kind of started rewriting the film in the audition. I mean, basically, he made us started changing the screenplay in the audition. So when I finished the audition, I was confused. I was like, he's like basically asking me to rewrite the film. I don't get it. Like, he doesn't want me to act in it. He wants me to write. And he was asking all those questions. Have you ever written a screenplay? I was like, yes. Have you ever done this? I'm like, yeah, I'm writing right now. Blah, blah. And Ethan had written a book, so, a novel. So basically then a few hours later, my agent called me to say I got the part. And I was having a migraine, so I didn't really enjoy the news because I was throwing up. But, that's okay. I'm used to it. Sorry. It doesn't sound very fun suddenly. It's like, you got the part. Like this.
And could you ever imagine at that time that?
But I was actually very happy to get the part, because I really liked Richard's work, and I liked Ethan, and
So once you stopped throwing up, you celebrated.
Yeah, I celebrated. Yeah, exactly.
But could you ever imagine that 20 years later you'd have 3 films with these characters?
Not at all. When we shot the first film, we didn't think we'd make a second or a third. And actually, when we started working on the second, a lot of people were like, why? Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, they looked at me with a certain pity, like they were like, you miserable thing, trying to make a sequel to an indie film. It's like embarrassing. Like I remember people would be like, "Oh, so what are you doing these days?" Oh, really? Just great.
What was the impetus for the second film? Was it working together on Waking Life?
Yes,
kind of?
exactly.
Yeah.
When we worked together on Waking Life, an animated film Rick did, which I really love actually, and we had that little scene in bed, that imaginary Celine and Jesse, thing, and bless you, and I know it's cold in here, and that's when we said, oh, we realized that it doesn't happen every day to meet people you have such a wonderful creative relationship with. And we had that on the first film when we rewrote and worked on the film together. And we decided, why don't we try to do a sequel,
And when you had done the first film, did you have in your own mind what happened to Celine and Jesse? If they met up months later or not?
I had put it away from my mind for a long time. Like, I was like, caught up in my own stuff, dealing with not getting work, basically. And so that's what I was caught up in, and then thinking, oh shit, I didn't get credited as a writer on this film. They fucked me over. I kind of felt like shit, I didn't feel so good for a few years after the film, and for many all sorts of reasons, just like mostly because I was having a hard time finding my road, which I found now. I'm a much happier person,
You,
I think, so far this year.
you said you weren't used to getting cast when you would go in for auditions. Why was that?
The other day we talked a lot about the audition process, and I'm not a very secure person. I have a lot of anxiety, and so when I go on auditions, I see all those other women, and I'm like, oh, she's prettier, she's smarter, she's cooler, her breasts are bigger. I mean, like, everything is an excuse for me to panic. So I go into the room and I'm like, I'm not getting the part, I'm not getting the part, I'm not getting the part. And so, you're supposed to go in, I'm getting it, everyone loves me, everyone loves me. I mean, like, I'm the opposite of that. Like, I'm like a mess. So when I go on auditions, it's kind of sad because I don't get the part because people are like, I'm not that good. And then what was weird with Richard in that audition is that he really made first me feel good, and I learned from that as a director is that now when I audition people, I really try to make people feel good first, because it's fucking nerve-wracking and unfair process, and you have good actors that don't get parts, and you have okay actors that are really good at auditions, and that's the max they'll get, good. And I've seen that, as a director now I see it, so I try to first talk to people a lot so they forget they're doing an audition, because it's an unfair process. And I think really I've seen too many people that I liked not getting things because they're not sure of themselves. And being insecure doesn't mean you're a bad actor, it sometimes can be the opposite, actually, but that's the way it is, that's the process.
A director, have you ever cast someone off a bad audition because you still saw something in them?
But I rarely had a bad audition because I took the time to spend with the person, enough time, and actually what's crazy is my prep is mostly auditioning people. I mean, it becomes 90% is like taking care of that, the smallest part. And also I believe you really need to be there as a director to cast even one line. Because I see big movies where you see the directors had nothing to do with casting the smaller parts, and it's like you have all this mess everywhere, and it's not coherent and stuff. So I really spend, location is one thing, you have to find locations, you have to make your shot list and everything, but you have to to take the time to cast everyone, in a precise and it's you have to do the process, it's a long process to make it right.
You were talking earlier about when you did the first sequel and people would look at you with pity. Your agents didn't respond very well to the idea
Yeah,
of
I
a
know
sequel, did they?
it's a fun story because it has a happy ending. But it's basically he fired me when I was writing Before Sunset because he thought I was wasting my time focusing on something else than going to those auditions that he would send me to. Also, he was sending me to auditions that weren't very exciting or things that didn't make sense. Like he would send me to go on audition for sexy Latina, and I was like, where do you see me as a sexy Latina? I mean, like I had nothing of a sexy Latina, and like you had Salma Hayek at the same audition. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm really gonna get the part. I mean, that makes you feel really, you're like next to Salma Hayek, who is a sexy Latina, and you're like this blonde, endive. And that's what you say in French when you're blonde and white. You're an endive because you're white and blonde. Trying to act sexy, and you're like, ooh, I feel the Latin in me. So. Disaster. So anyway, he fired me. And he was like, I'm sorry, you're wasting your time. We don't believe you're...
Wow.
Yeah, I know. But, he called me a year and a half later after my Oscar nomination for writing and stuff. And he was like, I was so sad when you left the agency. And he meant it too.
Really?
He really believed it. He had like...
Total revisionist history.
Total revision. It's genius. It's actually genius.
So in making this film, what was the hardest scene from an acting standpoint?
They were all very difficult. I think, the car scene was painful, to say the least. And then, so painful. It was hard. The walking scenes were painful too because keeping the focus when you have an entire crew ahead of you falling. It's like, I mean, we have takes when Ethan says, like, we hear a scream and I'm like this, and Ethan's saying, Julie, stay focused, stay focused. Please, we almost had it. Please, stay focused. Like we're like almost crying of like stress. And we're like, okay, a few of the scenes, sometimes we could put the camera behind and have Richard possibly cut that moment where Ethan's like, stay focused, stay focused. It's very hard to keep your focus. And, in a way, the fight scene, in a weird way, it's easier also because we have to express more things. It's more emotional and stuff. And in a way, being an actor, it's sometimes easier to be emotional than to be neutral. And also there's something about Richard, he doesn't want to see the acting. So when, for example, I'm like, I just did my moment, it was my big moment. And he's like, I could see the acting. And it's like, you have to take it back to be as natural as possible. And having this kind of hyper natural kind of thing that, the other day, it's funny, a friend of mine who's an actress, and she's quite theatrical and stuff, very good actress, but very theatrical. She was reading the screenplay, and she was saying, damn, so it's not that much in the writing, in a way. It is in the writing a bit, but it's also in the acting, the natural side to it. And that's our fight all the time when we do this film. That's our struggle, I would say, not fight, but that struggle is to get to that place where it doesn't look like acting. Like, the very end scene, I had rehearsed it, and I was pouring crying in that scene. And then Richard was like, this is not, you're not Ophelia. I mean, like, what are you doing? It's it's like, I'm an actress. I'm used to, act. And then he's like, no, take it back 10 steps. It's like, okay, so I can't really cry because also I have to be funny again very soon after that. It's not a Douglas Sirk movie, it's like it has to be, you have to take it back many steps, so it's always that bullseye, like not too much, but real enough and as true as possible. There's no tricks, that's the hard part about this kind of film,
It's amazing how hard it is to look natural.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard to look natural, I think, especially when you know you're being observed and when you have lines that you can't change at all. Because he doesn't want to, when you improvise a movie, there's a lot of jump cuts. It's very simple. I've done improvised film. I've done it. It's actually a lot of fun to do, but it's tons of jump cuts because you have all that stuff you can't use, you have to trim, So it's very different kind of stuff, But it's wonderful to do this film. I mean, I'm sounding like I'm complaining all the time. I just shot like about a year ago, so I'm still recovering. It's like I'm still traumatized.
Well, that's why you guys take so long between movies.
Yes, it takes me 9 years to. It takes Ethan and I 9 years to recover. It really is true too. It's like.
Which, leads to the obvious question, which is what's next? I know Jack Black joked you needed to do Before Eclipse.
Before Eclipse.
Fourth movie, yeah.
And he's in it. No, but
He's your son.
He's our son. Yeah, that would be great. We adopted Jack Black. No, but seriously, I don't know. I don't know if we'll do a next film. I don't know. We'll see. It all depends where we're at in our lives. If we have something to say, I mean, we can't fake those films, even in the way we approach them. When we started this third one, we decided to go in a place that's not very much a crowd pleaser. I mean, they're fighting half the film, And I remember I spoke to a few friends of mine that are not my friends anymore. I just thought about them. Not because I fought with them, but because I decided maybe they were not, wishing me the best in a way. And they were like, oh, this is shit. You're going to be fighting the whole time? They're actually not friends. It's different. They're people in my life. But anyway, I like to surround myself with people that hate me. But and hate what I do. Sorry.
Well, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah. Maybe a few. No? Okay. Now I'm scared. People like me, it's scary. But basically they were like, oh, what a bad idea. They're going to fight. No one wants to see a fight, a couple fighting. It's so awful. So I was like, oh my God, we're doing something. And it's true, it's scary to go places like that because it's not like obvious. It's like they're together, but they're fighting, So a lot of people were expecting, oh, they're together, but they're happy. Yeah, they're together, they're happy, but they're fighting. Like every happy couple. Yeah. And they're breaking up a little bit, but then maybe they'll stay together. We don't know. So it's the reality of being with someone for a long time. It's really hard, even when you love them.
I want to take some questions from the audience. We have, I apologize in advance if I butcher anyone's name. Victor Kursane? Oh, okay. Wants to know, what would you have done differently if you weren't an actor?
If I wasn't kind of obsessed with telling stories through writing, acting, directing, music, everything I can find to tell stories, I would be a scientist. I know that sounds weird, but I was obsessed with astrophysics, and so I would be at JPL. I would be at at NASA, hopefully. If I had succeeded as an astrophysicist, I would be at NASA. That would be but I didn't go that route. But I was good at it. That was my main, math, science was my main thing, so.
Question, I think it's, is it Mikhail?
I'm a nerd.
Michael?
I'm a nerd, It's kind of become an actress, kind of like that, but.
I think it's Mikhail. It's how does your process as an actor change when directing yourself as opposed to being directed by someone else? Do you prefer one to the other, and if so, why?
Well, when I'm directed by someone else, it's less stressful because, if the person is a good director, then it's a little stressful if he's a bad director. It's like, then you're like, okay, I'll do it. But for example, being directed by Richard, I'd not been directed by anyone since I had started directing, basically. Yeah. So basically, I've been directing myself for many years now. There's something stressful about it because sometimes you can lose perspective, obviously. You have to remind yourself. The chance we have now with technology is I can look at takes. But, I've come to a place where often I'm able to say if my take was okay or terrible. Like, I can sense when my acting is really bad. You know, I can't sense if it's good. I can sense that it's okay. I can sense that maybe I can edit a scene with what I did. But with a director, especially that I trust, like Richard, it's nice. I mean, I'm like, you know, plus with Richard, I've worked with so long, I give him a look like, you know, I don't need to say, how was it? And he's like, you know, I know it's not great. And then when he goes, I know that's like, we have also special signs that I can't tell you because it's a lot of dirty stuff. But we have like special signs like this that means it's not, you know, they're not into each other enough. I don't want to say what it means, but like, you know, if you knew, you'd be horrified. But it's really funny. It's nothing dirty. It's like really funny, goofy, kind of silly stuff. But yeah, we have signs. We give each other signs. We actually communicate like no one else on the crew know what he meant to me by doing like this, you know.
It's like baseball signals.
Yes, we have baseball signals.
Speaking of directing, Jack has a question. Wants to know if you have plans to direct again soon.
You know, I'm trying to. I'm waiting to hear from financiers for a bunch of films. And, you know, it's a tough process to make movies. And the main thing is that you need to attach talent. That's why I always end up being in my films. You know, it sounds crazy, but like so far I was never able to get a woman. And right now I wrote this wonderful part for a woman, but it's a pretty expensive film, so I need to cast someone with, you know, that can bring value to the film and stuff. It's all about that now. I mean, that's how movies are made. And it's, you know, I've just started, but I feel it's going to be a hard road because it's a quite expensive film, so.
Is it hard for you as an actress to, you know, I don't know if you get offered parts or sent on auditions for sort of one-dimensional female roles when you're creating these amazing
Well, I'm not
women's
getting on
roles?
auditions to anything. I mean, I'm not meeting anyone for acting. It's very difficult. I think the minute, you know, in a way, women can't have it all. It's sadly, it's almost like because I'm writing and directing, I'm being punished. Or people, you know, it's funny, it's not entirely true. Actually, I probably will do the next Todd Solondz film, which I love. I don't know if you know his work, Happiness, and he did a lot of palindrome, really amazing.
Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Dark films, really dark sense of humor. I read the first 2 pages. I was like, I'm doing it. You know, I don't know what it is, what the part is and stuff. I just love his stuff. So I'm very happy about that. But the first conversation with him I had was like, people had told me you don't work with other people. I'm like, that's crazy. It's like this, you know, the minute you start directing, you're like, people assume you're not interested in other people's work. You know, it's so weird, and it's not the truth at all. But it's true that I get sent sometimes one-dimensional, but, you know, you can give it more dimension as an actor. You can find more dimensions, you know. That's part of the job of an actor, is to give more than what is written, you know. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's so one-dimensional that it's like, you know, like this, like it's a caricature or something, and then you're like, oh, what can I bring? What can I bring? Oh, that was my own hair, I think.
You can bust out the sexy Latina.
A little crazy. I'm being attacked by my hair. That's a one-dimensional crazy person, crazy French person.
Well, I can't wait to see what you do next. Either as an actor, a writer, director. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Congratulations on a beautiful
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.